So this video is really a lot about pain management, and it comes in handy for more than just labor. Like, I've used these now since to deal with all kinds of stress, all the stress that comes with being a mom of 3 kids. And I use these little tips and tricks that I learned primarily from labor just to help me cope and to help me get through and to help me heal from the stressors of life. So what are the main things I learned from my 3 unmedicated labors so far are, first is that gratitude is queen. Okay, my last labor was incredible. I didn't really feel much pain. Let's put it that way. It's hard to explain because the pain kind of turns into something else. It turns into an intensity. You know how the pain inside of you is still very loud inside. Well, that loudness doesn't quite go away. That intensity doesn't quite go away. It just gets transformed into something that's less scary and less physically painful. So I had a hard time timing my contractions because I was doing mental gratitude lists and listing off, thank you for the opportunity to be giving life. Thank you for this air and breathing. Thank you for the people that are with me. And I was just thinking those thoughts in my head as I'm feeling these contractions, and that actually transformed the pain into something more like pressure waves, which were sort of hard to put your finger on when they started and when they stopped. It actually sped up labor as well. So don't do this unless you're pretty close to the hospital or you can get to the hospital, because it's really hard. It was very hard for me to sort of gauge whether it was time to go to the hospital even. So I had to kind of stop being grateful and feel some painful contractions a couple times to see how far apart they were, so that I could go, okay, yeah, it's time to go. So gratitude is queen. For some reason, and I'm sure there's plenty of studies out there that talk about the analgesic properties of gratitude. I did gratitude throughout the entire labor, even up until the moment of birth, of delivery. So gratitude was, in my mind, probably the number one saving grace for me throughout my 3rd pregnancy. Now, water helped me with my all 3 of them. Water was the first one to get me thinking about that there was a way to have a less painful labor, because with my first labor with Josephine, she came a month early. I hadn't prepared at all for her labor. I hadn't mentally prepared for what was going to happen, and I was just going to go with the flow, and it kind of shot me into sort of a traumatic experience. My water broke and I was immediately at a 10 of pain, and so I drove the whole way to the hospital in pain, and her labor in total only lasted 2 hours. Okay, so it was quite a traumatic experience for me. But there was one point during the labor that things totally switched, and that was when the nurses told me, okay, you need to get up. I wasn't breathing right. I was hyperventilating. I couldn't get myself calm. Sorry about that. So the nurses told me, okay, she's not calming down. Why don't you try sitting in the shower? And so I went to the shower, and Mike was helping me because I could barely even walk. I was just so tense in pain. So once I was in the shower, with the water running, there's something about the sound of the water and the feeling of it on my skin that snapped me out of that state of fear and panic, and that cycle of fear, panic, pain. And I was able to catch my breath, and I was able to relax, and I started to sing, and I had a half hour of no pain at all. I thought I had stopped the labor, but I was so traumatized by the level of pain that I was in before that I was just relieved to have stopped labor. But I hadn't stopped labor. In fact, I think I sped it up quite a bit. I was in there for half an hour, and I went in 6 centimeters dilated, and I came out 11 centimeters dilated, ready to push. So, which is just unheard of for me. So the sound of the water really helped, and so I used the water for my next 2 labors as well. For my 2nd and my 3rd, I had water births and water labors, and the sound of the water trickling into the bathtub was so soothing to me. It was like having my own little waterfall that I want like I've been thinking about getting like a little water feature for my house just to have the sound of water, because just, taking a shower every day and using that time to really meditate and to just be grateful and to repeat my prayers and things like that in the water. I've now been starting to use that every day as like a daily sort of prayerful practice. And so water, yeah, so I use that in all 3 labors. Highly recommend water. And what's another one? So for me, having the lights dimmed was really important, having the lights completely off. I was like almost blinded by the littlest bit of light during my first and my second, especially when it came time to deliver. I had to like cover my eyes with a towel because it was just too painful to see. Now with my third, with Margaret, I didn't have that experience. So that is something interesting. I don't know, every labor is different, but I was able to continue delivery and everything with the lights pretty much on, I think, with my third. So now I was doing gratitude throughout that whole one, so that may have something to do with it. And the musicality, that's a big one for me. So like I said, with my first, I sang in the shower with her, and I was singing like Irish lullabies and just songs I had memorized. And I turned my attention to her and how she must be feeling. If I was afraid, she must be feeling fear. So I started trying to soothe her, and it got me out of my, the pain and fear sort of get you so self-focused that it was able to bring me out of myself and to focus on the baby and to think about what she's feeling and feel some compassion. And like I said, that 30 minutes with my first was the most pain-free of any of them. So whatever I did there was that intensity of focus on the baby and on her feelings, and singing to her and soothing her was really helpful for speeding up labor, especially. But the music, so during my second labor with Madeline, I listened to a lot of sort of rhythmic hip hop and things like that. And during the first part of labor, before it got super intense, then I also practiced like swaying and sort of moving. I can't lay in a bed. I can't. I don't know who can. So I didn't lay down for any of my labors except when they needed to like check the baby, and they'd have me lay on the bed. If I had a contraction when I was laying down, it was like the worst. So I really liked being able to stand and move and sort of move my hips and sway and be able to sort of feel where I needed to move. I also did a lot of heel stomping with my second. I would just sort of like put my heels on the ground and help shake loose the tension in my hips. That was really helpful for that. I didn't need to do that during the third, once again, because I was doing gratitude the whole time. I didn't really get tense. I was trying to avoid tension in my whole body, and gratitude and the water really helped me to accomplish that with my third. So I didn't do much like dancing, but I did do some sort of vocal music. So every time the contractions with my third got really bad, when I was really close to delivery and they just got really intense, I would moan in a musical sort of sing-song way. I couldn't quite verbalize words. I couldn't quite articulate melodies that I knew by heart or anything like that. I was just going and sort of moaning in a musical, harmonious sort of way. And with my third, I was so calm. Michael didn't even think I was in full labor. He didn't, up until the point of delivery, he didn't even think, he thought the hospital was going to send me home. That's how calm I was on the outside, okay, guys? So that's how much this gratitude helped me stay completely in control of myself. So even when I was there in the water and I was moaning musically, it was very quiet. It was a very peaceful experience. Totally different from my very first. So at least the beginning of my very first, it was an experience that like I can't wait to replicate again for future pregnancies. And that's why I'm sharing this with you now. Hopefully that this can help you with your pregnancy and your labors that you want to do. So this brings me to the fetal ejection reflex. Okay, I want to talk about this for a minute, because with my first, like I said, I got into this zone. I was singing to the baby. I was in my little waterfall. I didn't feel any pain. I didn't feel any contractions. I felt like labor had stopped when really it had sped up like crazy. And that's because oxytocin was just flowing, and oxytocin literally means quick birth. So the more oxytocin you can get to come in, the faster the labor, which is why it's good to do these, but make sure you're close to the hospital when you start doing this, because I was able to let my nurses know, like, okay, this baby will be here in 2 hours max with my third, because I knew I was going to open the floodgates of the oxytocin and just completely relax as much as possible and trust as much as possible, and that speeds things up. So what fetal ejection reflex is it's where your body pushes the baby out on its own without you needing to push. Now with my first, I pushed, and it was so disorienting, so confusing. It felt terrible, and so I went from that euphoric state of total peace and harmony in my shower, singing to my baby, and then they were like, all right, come out, it's time to push. And I came out, and I did what they said, and I tried pushing, and it took probably, I don't know how many minutes. It took quite a few pushes. I would say probably less than most people experience, but to me it was like very rattling on my system, very jarring to have to push. So I looked up the fetal ejection reflex, and I found out that your body can do it without you needing to do it if you are relaxed enough. And that's what I found happened with my second and my third, is I relaxed and I felt feelings of openness, of trust. And it's when you get the most scared. It's like there's this moment right before it's time to deliver, right before it's time for the baby to come out, where you get the worst fear. You just get a spike of fear, anxiety, intensity, what have you. It's just like, they describe it as almost like you face death. And that's the kind of level of fear it is. And I did feel that. I did feel that with my first. Now with my second and third, when I got to that point of feeling that intensity and that fear, I reminded myself, fear and intensity, fear is bad. I need to get rid of the fear by being peaceful. So I always would fight fear with peace and fight fear with love. And so with my second, when I was feeling those, I focused on the baby. I started to be her cheerleader, and I just put all of my thoughts towards her, and you can do it, and you're gonna be great, like, you've got this. And I tried to drown out the fear with love, okay, with compassion, focusing on the baby instead of my own feelings and my own fears and things like that, because fear can, once you can take yourself out of that cycle of fear, which gets you trapped in your own head, okay. So when I did that, then my body just, in a couple contractions, maybe 2 contractions, pushed the baby out. And same with the third. So with the third one, instead of focusing on the baby, which is what I'm going to do next time, I was really focused on God, and I was focused on giving gratitude for this baby to God. So I was still not self-focused. I was still God-focused, other-focused, and I was able to say, all for you, God, this is all for you. And that helped open me up and relax me, and enough to, for this fetal ejection response to happen. There wasn't this clamming up and this closing up and this fear that kind of shuts things down. So what I learned essentially is there are a lot of tips, a lot of tricks. You have to listen to your body. Every labor is different. Okay, so my mental game going forward with future pregnancies is to listen to my body, listen to what it needs, but to fight that fear and that tension that wants you to clam up and that wants you to hold it all in, to fight that with feelings of compassion and feelings of gratitude, and obviously water therapy for sure. I did a lot of grounding and just trying to stay in my body, because you don't want to get up in your head where the fear is. You don't want to get up in the rational part of your head. You want to get down into the more musical and rhythmic side of your body that just knows what it's doing. We are only here because We have had mothers who've done this before us. We can do this. We are successful at bearing children, and we can pass this on to future generations, which is also why I'm making this video for my future generations, my future granddaughters who might need to, who are wondering, like, how did great grandma even, how did she do it? Like, what was her mind game? Because a lot of times we don't get that. Like, how many women were able to write down and share what their mental strategy was for facing this huge obstacle, this huge fear, childbirth. So this is why I'm putting this out there, to share this with you, but to also share it with my own future children and grandchildren, so that they have something to build off of in the future. So those are my main things. Gratitude is queen. Water is magical. Fetal ejection reflex is key. You gotta relax through even the worst part. Like, you have to find your mental strategy for being open when you most want to close down and scream and be afraid. Because we're dealing with feelings that come from deep within us, not feelings that are just in your head. We're dealing with the body, with the womb, which is so hidden within us. It's like, and so deeply hidden within us, that these fears and these feelings are coming up from below. They're not solvable with our mind. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. All right, so those were the 1, 2, 3 big things I learned from my last 3 pregnancies.